She mocked my silly art career. My painting hung over her office next. That's not just a moment that sticks with you. That's the kind of thing that changes everything about how you see yourself and the people around you. Because it's not about just winning or proving someone wrong. It's about the specific person who doubted you most finally seeing what you've been trying to tell them all along. I'm about to tell you the story of how one woman's passion for art turned into something her mother never expected. And the way it all came together is nothing short of incredible. But before I get into it, you need to understand where this whole thing started, because the beginning is actually pretty rough. This is the kind of story where you're going to feel frustrated at first. You're going to feel angry for her. But stick with me, because the ending is worth it. Let me take you back to when she was just starting out, back when nobody believed in what she was doing. And I mean, nobody. Not her parents, not her teachers, not her friends. Really, nobody. Growing up, she always had this thing with her hands. Like when other kids were playing outside or watching TV, she was drawing, she was painting, she was creating things. From like 7 years old, she was the kid sitting in the corner with a sketchbook, completely absorbed in her own world. Her friends would call her to come hang out, and she'd be like, yeah, just one more minute, and then that one more minute would turn into hours. She'd lose track of time completely. That's when you know something is real for you, when you can spend hours doing it without even noticing time passing. Her mom, though, she had a different vision for her life. She didn't see art as something real. She didn't see it as a career or a path forward. To her, art was just a hobby, something you do when you're bored or when you have nothing else going on. Her mom was a corporate executive, the kind of person who wore power suits and worked in high-rise office buildings and talked about quarterly earnings and profit margins and shareholder value. That was real work to her. That was the kind of thing that mattered. That was the kind of thing that you built your life around. Her dad was a bit more laid back about it, but he didn't really stand up for her either. He was the type to just go along with what her mom said. If her mom said art wasn't a real career, then he'd nod along. If her mom said she needed to focus on school and getting a practical degree, he'd agree. He wasn't mean about it, but he also wasn't her ally. He was just kind of neutral about the whole thing. So the tension started early. Really early. Like when she was in elementary school, she'd come home excited about an art project she did at school, and her mom would be like, "That's nice, but did you do well in math? Did you get a good grade in English? Why are you spending so much time on art when you could be studying?" Even as a little kid, she was getting the message that the things she loved didn't matter, as much as the things her mom thought were important. Every time she talked about wanting to pursue art, her mom would push back. She'd say things like, "That's not practical," or "You need a backup plan," or "You can't make real money doing that." And my personal favorite that parents always say, "You're so talented, but you need to think about your future." What that really means is, "I'm proud of you, but I don't think you're capable of actually making it happen." These weren't mean comments exactly, but they were dismissive. They made it clear that what she loved didn't fit into the box of what her mom thought was acceptable or valuable or worth pursuing. As a teenager, the comments shifted. They became more strategic. Her mom started bringing up other kids from school who were going into business or computer science or engineering. She'd say things like, "Did you hear that Jessica's going to Yale to study economics?" Or, "That boy from your class got accepted to Stanford for engineering." The implication was always there. Look, these are the things that matter. These are the careers that are worth having, not art. But here's the thing about people who actually love creating. They don't just stop because someone tells them to. They might listen. They might feel that sting of rejection. They might internalize some of it. But they don't stop. They keep going. They might second-guess themselves sometimes. They might feel that doubt creeping in, especially on days when things are hard. But they keep creating anyway. As she got older, the gap between her and her mom got bigger. Her mom would be excited about promotions and business deals and office politics, and she'd be excited about finishing a new piece or getting feedback on her work from people in the art community. They just lived in completely different worlds. And her mom made sure she knew that she didn't think much of the world she was living in. She tried to hide her passion sometimes. She'd be working on a painting in her room, and if her mom came upstairs, she'd actually hide it. She didn't want to hear the comments. She didn't want to see that look of disappointment on her mom's face. That's what happens when someone makes you feel ashamed of the things you love. You start hiding them. You start becoming smaller to try to make other people more comfortable. Throughout high school and into college, the comments kept coming. Her mom would ask about her grades in her other classes, but act completely uninterested in her art classes. She'd encourage her to network with people in finance or marketing or business, never art. She'd clip out articles about the cost of living in cities where artists tried to make it, and she'd leave them on the kitchen table for her to find. Not even saying anything about them, just leaving them there for her to see. The message was clear. This is not the path I want for you. This is not something I respect. This is not going to work out. And then came the day that really hurt. The day that actually broke something. It was right after she graduated high school. She had gotten into a pretty good college, one of her safety schools. Her mom wanted her to go somewhere more prestigious, somewhere that had a strong business school. But she was also thinking about going to art school. She was considering taking a different path. She was thinking about her life and what she actually wanted to do with it instead of just doing what her parents expected. She spent the summer between high school and college thinking about it. She was 18 years old, and she was at a crossroads. She could play it safe. She could go to a regular college, get a business degree, make her parents happy, have a normal career. Or she could take a risk. She could pursue art. She could try to make it as an artist. It was terrifying because nobody around her believed it was possible. But she also knew that if she didn't try, she'd regret it for the rest of her life. So she decided to talk to her parents about it. She sat them down in the living room and she laid it out. She said she didn't want to go to a regular college. She wanted to apply to art schools. She wanted to focus on her painting and her art. She wanted to pursue this as a career, not just as a hobby. She said she knew it was risky, but it was what she believed in. It was what she wanted to do with her life. Her dad didn't say much. He just kind of nodded and looked at her mom. But her mom, she had a lot to say, and none of it was supportive. Her mom's response was brutal. She didn't yell or scream. In some ways, that would have been easier. If someone yells at you, you can be angry back. You can defend yourself. You can tell them they're wrong. Instead, she just looked at her and said something that would echo in her head for years. She said, "That's a nice hobby, but you're not going to make real money doing this. You're too lazy to succeed at something that requires actual work. Art is not a career. It's something people do on the side when they have a real job. You need to be realistic about your future." And then she said something even worse. She said, "I won't be paying for art school. If you want to throw your life away, you're going to do it on your own dime, but you're not getting a cent from me." And then she cut her off. No more financial support. No more help with anything. If she wanted to pursue this silly art career, she was on her own. Her dad didn't fight it. He didn't stand up for her. He just accepted it. And her mom made it clear that she was disappointed in her and that she didn't believe in her and that she thought she was making a huge mistake. Those words stuck. Too lazy to succeed. That's what echoed in her head for months. Not because she believed it was true deep down, but because her mom was the person she wanted to believe in her the most. And instead, that's what she got. That harsh judgment, that disappointment, that refusal to support her. Most people probably would have given up right there. Most people would have gone to that regular college to keep the peace with their parents. Most people would have listened to the person they loved telling them they couldn't do it, and they would have believed them. Most people would have chosen safety over passion. Most people would have chosen to make their parents happy over chasing their dreams. But she didn't. Something in her refused to accept that. She was hurt, sure. She was angry, definitely. She was also scared. She didn't have any money. She didn't have her parents' support. She didn't have a plan. But she also had something else. She had this fire inside her that told her that her mom was wrong, that told her that she could do this, that told her that she had to try. She applied to art schools anyway. She got into a decent one, not the most prestigious, but a good school with a solid reputation. It wasn't full-ride scholarship money, but she qualified for some aid. She took out student loans. She worked part-time jobs to make up the difference. She cleaned houses. She worked retail. She did whatever she had to do to make school happen. And her mom didn't come to her graduation from high school. She said she had a work thing that came up, and she couldn't reschedule it. Her dad went alone. That's what happened when you refused to do what your parents wanted. They punished you by withdrawing their presence. During her first year of art school, things were hard. Really hard. She was going to classes, learning everything she could about art and technique and design. She was living in a tiny dorm room with a roommate, and she was constantly stressed about money. She was working these jobs that drained her physically and didn't leave her much time or energy for schoolwork. She was taking out loans, she was eating cheap food, she was struggling. But she was also learning. She was discovering who she was as an artist. She was figuring out her style and her voice and what she wanted to say through her work. She was meeting other artists who believed in the same things she did, who were also taking risks and pursuing their passion. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was in the right place. She felt like she belonged. She'd go home during Christmas break, and it was always awkward. Her mom would ask about school, but in this dismissive way that made it clear she wasn't really interested. She'd ask if she was thinking about changing her major yet. She'd comment about how expensive art school was and what a waste of money it seemed like. She wouldn't say it directly, but the message was always there. I'm still waiting for you to give up on this and do something practical. But she didn't give up. She finished art school. She graduated with a degree in fine art. Her parents did show up for graduation this time. Her mom sat there with this expression on her face that was like, okay, you did it, but now what? Like graduation was just a formality and the real failure was still coming. After graduation, the real world hit her hard. She didn't have a job lined up. She didn't have a company recruiting her. She didn't have the clear path that her business major friends had. Most of them were moving to big cities and starting jobs at consulting firms or investment banks or corporations making decent money. She was moving back in with her parents temporarily while she figured out what to do next. That was one of the hardest periods of her life, living back at home at 22 years old. Her mom making comments about her life choices constantly. Her mom's friends asking her at dinner parties what she was doing now, and her having to explain that she was trying to build an art career, which meant listening to them all say things like, "Oh, that's so brave," or "That must be difficult financially," with this look like they felt sorry for her. But here's where she made a crucial decision. Instead of trying to get a normal job, instead of giving in to the pressure, she decided to actually commit to building a career as an artist. She was going to make this happen, no matter what it took. She started creating content online. This was before social media was as massive as it is now, but it was still growing. She created an Instagram account and started posting photos of her paintings. She posted pictures of her process, showing people how she made her art. She posted finished pieces. She engaged with other artists online. She built a small following. It wasn't thousands of people at first. It was like a few hundred. But they were real people who actually cared about her work. She started taking commission requests. People would find her on Instagram and ask if she could paint something for them. A portrait, a custom piece, something for their home or their business. She'd do it, and they'd pay her. The money wasn't huge, but it was real money that she could live on. It was proof that people were willing to pay for her art. It was validation that this wasn't stupid or a waste of time. It was actually something people valued. She moved into her own place with a roommate, a tiny apartment in a cheaper part of the city. She set up a little corner as her studio. She worked on paintings during the day. She worked part-time shifts at a coffee shop in the evenings and on weekends to make sure she had money for rent and food. She was living frugally, but she was living on her own terms. She wasn't asking her parents for money. She wasn't asking them for anything. She was making it happen herself. Her mom didn't get it. When she'd visit the apartment, she'd look around at the paintings and the art supplies and the general artistic chaos, and she'd shake her head. She'd say things like, "When are you going to get a real job?" Or, "This is not sustainable. You need to think about your future." But her daughter just kept working. She kept creating. She kept building. A year into this, she had built a decent following on Instagram, a few thousand people. She was getting regular commission requests. She was actually making enough money from her art to live on, though it was tight. She was proving that her mum was wrong. She was proving that you could actually make money from art. She was proving that passion plus hard work could equal real income. But then something happened that changed the whole game. The NFT market started exploding. This was around 2021 and 2022. Everyone was talking about cryptocurrency and blockchain and NFTs. Digital art was becoming this huge new thing. People were buying digital art for insane amounts of money. And she saw an opportunity. Now, I know a lot of people have opinions about NFTs, and there are definitely valid criticisms. But here's what matters for this story. She saw a way to take her art and create digital versions that could be sold and collected in a new way. She wasn't just painting anymore. She was thinking about her art as something that could exist in different forms and reach different audiences. She was being innovative. She was staying ahead of the curve. She started converting her paintings into digital files. She learned about blockchain and how NFTs worked. She minted her own collection. It was her paintings converted into digital art that people could buy and own and collect. She put them on the market, and she was nervous. What if nobody bought them? What if she was jumping on a trend that was going to crash? What if people criticized her for selling NFTs instead of just doing real art? But then the sales started coming in. People were interested. Her NFTs were selling. She was making real money from digital versions of her art. Not just a little money. Real, significant money. People were paying hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars for her digital art pieces. She was making more money than she ever had before. She was building an actual brand around her work. She was becoming a known name in the digital art and NFT space. And suddenly, she wasn't living paycheck to paycheck anymore. She had money in the bank. She had savings. She had breathing room. She could take risks. She could invest in better equipment. She could upgrade her studio space. She could live without constantly worrying about how she was going to pay rent. Her mom found out about the NFT sales, and her reaction was complicated. On one hand, she couldn't deny that her daughter was making real money. Real, significant money. On the other hand, she still didn't understand it. She still didn't get why people would pay money for digital art. She still didn't see it as legitimate, but she couldn't say she was a failure anymore. That argument didn't work. Years passed after that. She kept building. She kept creating. She kept growing her audience and her business. She did NFT drops that sold out in minutes. She did collaborations with other artists. She got featured in articles about the digital art revolution. She was becoming somebody. She was building something real. And all the while, she was aware of what her mom was doing. Her mom was still working in that corporate office, still climbing the ladder, still making 6 figures a year. On the surface, it might have looked like her mom was still winning. Her mom had the prestigious career, the high salary, the respect that comes with being a successful corporate executive. But something was happening under the surface with her daughter. Every success she had made her want to do more. Every painting sold gave her more confidence. Every NFT drop that succeeded told her that she was on the right path. Every person who bought her art was another person who believed in what she was doing. Every piece of negative feedback just made her want to prove more people wrong. The hunger to prove everyone wrong, especially her mom, was fuel. It was driving her forward in a way that nothing else could. It was this constant motivation in the back of her mind. Every time she felt like giving up, she'd think about what her mom had said. Too lazy to succeed. That phrase just kept her going. She started thinking bigger. She had built an online presence. She had built an audience. She had built income streams through her art and NFTs, but she wanted more. She wanted something physical. She wanted to create an actual space where she could work, where other artists could work, where people could come and experience art in person. She started saving money. She was making good money from her art and her NFTs, but she was also living relatively modestly. She didn't buy luxury cars or expensive clothes or go crazy with her money. She saved it. She invested it. She was thinking long term. She was thinking about building something real and lasting. And then she had an idea. An ambitious one, a crazy one, but the kind of crazy that only makes sense if you're the kind of person who refuses to accept limitations. She found out that the building where her mom's office was located was coming up for sale. It was this older building in a pretty nice part of the city. Multiple stories, good bones, decent location. It wasn't the fanciest building, but it had potential. It had character. It was the kind of place that could be transformed. And she realized something. She could buy this building. With the money she'd made from her art and her NFTs and all the work she'd put in over the years, she actually had enough to make it happen. She had enough for a down payment. She could get a business loan for the rest. It was ambitious, but it was possible. But here's the thing that makes this part really meaningful. It wasn't just about buying a building. It was about buying the specific building where her mom worked. The building where her mom went every single day. The place where her mom had spent years building her corporate career. Where her mom probably spent more time than she spent at home. She wanted to buy that building. She started doing the research. She looked into the building's history. She found out who the current owners were. She found out what they were willing to sell it for. She started talking to bankers and real estate agents. She put together a plan. It took months of work. It took planning and research and making phone calls and going to meetings. But she was serious about this. She was determined. When she finally made the offer, it was contingent on the bank approving her business loan. She had the cash for the down payment, but she needed financing for the rest. The bank looked at her financials. They looked at her income from her art business. They looked at her track record of success, and they approved her. They believed in her. They thought she was a good investment. The sale went through. She now owned a building, an actual physical building, the building where her mom worked. When her mom found out, the reaction was complicated. Shock, obviously. Shock and confusion. How had her daughter managed to buy a building? What was she planning to do with it? Was this some kind of stunt? Was she planning to kick her mom out? But there was also something else happening in her mom's mind, because her mom was starting to realize, really realize, that everything she'd said about her being lazy and incapable was wrong. Dead wrong. This wasn't lazy. This was someone who had taken every bit of doubt and every bit of rejection and turned it into fuel, who had refused to quit even when the person she loved most told her she couldn't make it, who had worked harder and been smarter and been more determined than almost anyone. This wasn't a lucky break or accident. This was someone who had made a series of decisions and executed on them, who had learned about NFTs and digital art, who had saved her money, who had built her credit, who had done the research and made the connections and made the deal happen. This was someone who was actually accomplished. Now here's where the story gets really, really good. She decided to transform that building completely. She had this vision of what it could be. She wasn't going to use it as office space or rent it out to corporate clients. She was going to use it for art. She started the renovation process. She worked with architects and contractors to design the space the way she wanted it. She took out the boring corporate office setup. She put in high ceilings in some areas to create gallery space. She added natural light with big windows. She set up studio spaces where artists could work. She created an actual gallery where she could display her own work and the work of other artists. She put in a coffee shop area. She created a community space where people could gather and talk about art. It was beautiful. It was exactly what she had always dreamed of. A real, physical space that represented who she was and what she believed in. A space that was the total opposite of what her mom had built there. Instead of corporate cubicles, she had creative studios. Instead of business meetings, she had art exhibitions. Instead of profit margins, she had paintings. The whole process took about a year. A full year of renovation and design and building and creating. And during that year, her mom still worked in that building. She watched as her daughter transformed the space around her. She watched as the corporate office floors were emptied out and converted into gallery space and artist studios. She had to move to a temporary office while the renovations happened. She witnessed the entire process of her daughter literally rebuilding the space her career was built on. That had to be strange for her. That had to make her think about things in a different way. And then the grand opening happened. Her daughter decided to throw an event to celebrate the opening of the new space. It was going to be a big thing. She invited artists from the community. She invited people who had supported her over the years. She invited critics and journalists who covered art and design. She invited pretty much everyone who had been part of her journey. And she invited her mom. Her mom showed up to the grand opening. She walked into the building that her daughter now owned. She saw the studio spaces and the gallery and the creative community that had been built there. She saw her daughter's paintings hanging on the walls. She saw the space transformed from corporate boredom into vibrant creativity. And as she walked through the space, she started to understand what her daughter had accomplished. It wasn't just about buying a building. It was about taking something that represented her mom's world and transforming it into something that represented her daughter's world. It was about proving something so completely and so undeniably that there was no way to argue with it anymore. What happened next was the moment that mattered most. Not the business success, not the money, not owning the building or even the grand opening party. But the moment her mom looked at her daughter, really looked at her, and saw her. Not as the lazy kid pursuing a silly art career, but as someone who was accomplished and talented and successful and creative. Her mom pulled her aside, away from the crowd. And she apologized. She said she was wrong. She said she was sorry for doubting her. She said she was sorry for all those years of dismissive comments. She said she was sorry for cutting off financial support. She said she was sorry for not believing in her. And most importantly, she said she was proud of her. She said she was genuinely proud. And she meant it. You could see it in her face. You could hear it in her voice. This wasn't a casual thing. This was her finally seeing her daughter for who she really was. They talked for a long time. Her mom wanted to know about everything. About how she learned about NFTs. About how she saved her money. About her vision for the building. About her art. She actually asked questions and listened to the answers. She was interested. She was engaged. She was present in a way that she hadn't been in years. Her mom started spending time in the building after that. She'd visit the gallery and look at the paintings. She'd watch her daughter work in her studio. She'd see the community that had formed there. She'd see other artists coming in and using the spaces and creating their own work. She started to understand that her daughter had created something bigger than just a business. She had created a community. She had created a space where creativity could thrive. And you could see the regret in her face sometimes. The regret about all those years of doubt. About all the times she had made her daughter feel small or stupid or unrealistic. About not believing in her. But you could also see the pride. The genuine, unmistakable pride of a parent seeing their child accomplish something amazing. One day, her mom brought her friends through the gallery. She showed them around like she was proud of what was there. She told them about her daughter's accomplishments. She talked about the NFTs and the building purchase and the renovations. She was bragging about her. For the first time in years, she was publicly proud of her daughter. She was telling people about her achievements instead of dismissing them. Her daughter was in her studio working on a new piece when she overheard her mom talking to her friends. Talking about her. Talking about how talented she was. Talking about how she had built this from nothing. And she cried. Not sad tears. Happy tears. Relief tears. Tears because the person whose approval she had wanted more than anyone else's finally believed in her. But here's what's really important about this story. It's not just about a daughter proving her mom wrong. It's not just about the happy ending where the parent finally realizes what a mistake they made. It's about what it actually takes to make something happen when everyone's telling you that you can't. It's about understanding that other people's doubts don't have to become your doubts. It's about understanding that just because someone you love doesn't believe in you doesn't mean you have to stop believing in yourself. It's about finding something you believe in and refusing to let go of it, no matter what obstacles get in your way. No matter who tells you it's impossible, too many people give up on what they love because one person didn't believe in them. One parent, one teacher, one friend, one failed attempt. But the people who actually succeed at the things they care about, they don't let one person's opinion become their identity. They don't let one moment of rejection stop them from trying. She could have listened to her mom and given up on art. She could have gotten a normal job in business or finance or tech. She could have lived a normal life and pretended that was enough. She could have made her mom happy. But she didn't. She did the thing she believed in. She was willing to look like a failure for a while. She was willing to work jobs she didn't want to work to support her art habit. She was willing to live frugally and take risks and build something from nothing. And when she finally made it, when she had the success and the recognition and the money and the building and the studio and the community, the best part wasn't any of that material stuff. The best part was getting to show her mom what she had accomplished. The best part was proving that everything her mom said was wrong. The best part was getting her mom to see her differently and finally respect what she did. The best part was getting the approval she had wanted all along, but on her own terms, through her own accomplishments. That's what real success feels like. It's not just about making money or having things or achieving external markers of success. It's about proving something to yourself. It's about showing people who doubted you that they were wrong. It's about building something that reflects who you actually are. So if you're sitting here watching this and someone in your life is telling you that your dreams are stupid or impractical or impossible, you need to hear something. They're wrong. They might have the best intentions. They might actually care about you. They might think they're protecting you from disappointment. But they're wrong. They don't know what you're capable of. They can't see the future. They can't see what you're going to build. The person who knows what you're capable of is you. The person who knows what you're willing to work for is you. The person who gets to decide what your life is going to look like is you. Not your parents, not your teachers, not your friends, you. It might take longer than you want. It might be harder than you expect. You might have moments where you doubt yourself and wonder if maybe the people who told you it was impossible were right all along. You're going to have days where you're exhausted and frustrated and questioning everything. You're going to have moments where you want to give up and just take the safe path. But if you keep going, if you refuse to give up on what you actually care about, if you push through those hard moments, you can make it happen. You can build something incredible. You can reach the point where the people who doubted you are forced to see what you've accomplished. And more than that, you can reach a point where you're proud of yourself, where you know in your heart that you did the thing you set out to do. You made it real. This is what happens when passion is powered by persistence. This is what happens when you refuse to accept someone else's limitations for your life. This is what happens when you keep going, even when everything feels impossible. You build something that nobody thought was possible. You become somebody that nobody thought you could be. This is the story of one woman who refused to listen to the doubters, who took that doubt and turned it into fuel, who built something incredible on the foundation of proving everyone wrong, and most importantly, who eventually got the one thing she wanted more than anything else, the approval and respect and pride of the person who doubted her the most. If you want to see more stories like this, stories about people who refused to give up and actually made their dreams happen, make sure to subscribe.